Now we're continuing in the Dvar Malchut, the royal words of the Rebbe that he spoke in 1992, shortly before he had a stroke, which rendered him unable to speak. And the Rebbe is asking a question on this week's Torah portion. Several questions, actually. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Tisa. Tisa means to be elevated. When you elevate, lift up. Tisa means to elevate, to lift up the Jews. The whole entire Torah portion is called by this name. So it must be that the whole Torah portion is talking about elevating the Jews, being lifted up. But in fact, it's not that way. Only the first paragraph talks about elevating the Jews by counting them. It says count. Kitisa also means to count, to take a head count. Only the first paragraph. All the rest of it talks about some very strange topics from one end to the other, good and bad. First of all, it talks about the holiness of the first tablets. And then Moses carved out the first tablets in heaven, and they were the tablets themselves were from God, and the writing was God, the hand God wrote. And then it talks about the Jewish people sinning with the golden calf. That's pretty bad. Then it talks about Moses breaking the tablets. That's can't get worse than that. Then it talks about Moses going up on Mount Sinai and asking God for forgiveness. And God forgives them, gives them the 13 attributes of mercy. Well, things are getting better. Then God says, I'm going to give you the second tablets. And Moses comes down with the second tablets, and his face is shining. It says there's beams of light coming from his face. That's pretty good. So if so, we see that there's a lot of very strange things going on over here. All this rest of the Torah portion doesn't seem to be at all relevant to the name of the whole Torah portion. It's called Kitisa, elevation, elevating the head. And it talks about how the Jews sinned with the golden calf, and Moses broke the tablets, and there's no elevation there. That's pretty bad. And true, in the end, God gave them the second tablets, but the second tablets weren't the same level as the first ones. They were lower. But for some reason, Moses' face was shining. So what's going on? So now the Rebbe is going to explain. Says the Rebbe, really the whole thing is one continuum. It's one continuum of good. And we're going to see how. Yuvan said, well, this will be understood. The explanation of this, Yuvan, will be understood, first of all, by making another preface. B'shebakol parsha, that in every Torah portion, there's 53 Torah portions. In the 5 books of Moses, it's divided up into 53 sections. There is something special. Ubifnei Atzman alone, it is divided and separate from all the other 52 Torah portions. Like it's understood from this, Shekorim Bo Parshat, we usually read Mitchilata so far from the beginning to the end, only once every Shabbat. Once every year. Once every year. The Torah, we Jewish people have been finishing the Torah once a year. There are some places where they finish once every 2 years, once every 3 years, but we've been doing this since it was given to Moses on Mount Sinai, non-stop. There were places where it was impossible. In Auschwitz, they didn't read the Torah, of course, they did. There were places where it was difficult to do, but nevertheless, they didn't stop reading the Torah. They always had people somewhere that read the Torah. If they didn't read it in European countries, then they read it in Sephardic countries. But the Torah was always read, the same Torah. And the Torah was divided into 53 Torah portions. This was done later, the division, but it doesn't really make any difference. The point is that the whole Torah is finished once a year, once every 2 years, but it's every topic is only read once in that time. We don't go back and read things. Al Derech says also this week's Torah portion, Ki Tisa. Together with this, that Ki Tisa, this week's Torah portion, is one Torah portion, is one Torah reading on its own. Ariyu Parsha Nifla, it's very, very amazing. Sheyesh bo chidush, it's got a big novelty. Not like the other Torah portions. All the other Torah portions have their topic, reading the going out of Egypt, listing a bunch of commandments. But this week's Torah portion, first of all, it's mostly stories. And it includes inside of it the whole entire order of creation. It begins from the end, from the beginning to the end. For instance, first of all, how it's written in the Torah, Hachel, beginning, how it's written in the Torah, that from it is the whole, all creation comes from the Torah, right? Call the Torah, the whole entire Torah, from the beginning to the end, until the end of the Torah. In this week's one Torah portion, we're going to see how. In this Kol Torah Parsha Zu, but Torah at calling in Kula, everything is in this week's Torah portion, Ki Tisa, from Bereshit until the receiving of the Torah, going out of Egypt, everything. How? Let's see. Everything in the Torah we can find. Now you have to remember the Torah is written by God. The Torah is written a book, ink on paper, but God wrote it. God wrote it. God dictated it to Moses, but the 10 Commandments were written by God himself. And Moses just wrote down what God told him to. All the letters, every letter was very exact. So who was the author of the Torah? The author of the Torah was God, and not just in a general way, in a specific way. And the Torah amazingly makes sense. The Torah makes sense. The Torah is a book that you can understand. It's a book that you can understand. But the book is a Torah that you can also misunderstand very easily. In fact, it's much, much easier to misunderstand the Torah than it is to understand the Torah. That's why the whole Talmud is there. That in order to interpret the Talmud properly, you have to be a person that's really, really, really totally sacrifices his whole life to find the truth in the Torah, not to use the Torah to explain his theories and his ideas and his urges or whatever. And so that learning the Torah properly demands a lot of self-sacrifice. But nevertheless, the truth is found in the Torah. And in the Torah, we can find everything. Like the rabbis say, hafach bo, the kula, everything is in the Torah. There's a long story, and I don't want to tell the whole story again. I think I already told the story several times. But it's a long story that the Rebbe learned in university. He learned in Berlin and he learned in France, learned in university. And there was one time when the Rebbe finished this test. Lubavitcher Rebbe. There was a test that was supposed to be 5 hours long, and he finished it like in a half an hour or something. And the teacher joked about it that he must be cheating or he must be doing magic or something. And the Rebbe got the high mark, whatever the highest mark. So the teacher said, "How do you do it? How could you do that?" So the Rebbe said, "I learned a book called the Talmud. And in the Talmud is all the wisdom in the world. And a person that understands the Talmud can understand all wisdom." Okay, of course, there's a lot of people learning the Talmud and they don't understand, what it is, the engineering or whatever the Rebbe understood. But nevertheless, the Rebbe was not lying. He said this. So he says, everything that is in the Torah, everything there is in the world can be found in the Torah. Not everybody can find it, but it's there. The Islam, we can say that this refers not only on the Torah, general in the Torah, but also every detail of the Torah can be found. The whole person, nowadays they have this thing, DNA, right? So you can take a DNA sample. As far as I know, I'm not expert in this thing at all, which you'll see. You can take a little hair from a person, right? A hair, the end of a person's hair, whatever is from 50 years ago, and like that, and you can tell everything about the person. You can tell everything. The whole entire person is in every detail of that person. Every detail of the person. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but in the Torah, it's not. In the Torah, every detail of the Torah contains the whole Torah. How much more so if we have one entire Torah portion, for sure that it contains the whole Torah. Of a barova and yanim, but generally, that we say that everything is in the Torah, it can only be found in a concealed way. And you have to be a very big genius and a holy genius in order to really reveal it properly. Okay, similarly, you have to find and reveal this by means of working very, very hard. You have to make a lot of mistakes until you finally come to the truth, which is not the case this week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, the novelty is Shakula Bo, that everything is in it, can be found revealed in a way that the whole written Torah, everything is written in a revealed way. In this week's Torah portion, the whole entire Torah, from the beginning, the creation of the world until the end, we'll see. God set it up, Shekol and Yanim, that everything in general in the world can be divided into many ways. There's 10 sfirot, there's 22 letters of the alphabet, there's 613 commandments. Everything in the world can be divided into 10, into 22, but also into 3. Rosh, Toch, V'Sof, a beginning, an end, and a middle. Everything there is in the world has a beginning to it, an end to it, and a content, everything. Kodem Kol, first of all, Bo Rosh comes the beginning. Vatchalas Kol, the beginning of everything, which includes inside of it everything. That's the beginning. The Achar Mikan, afterwards, comes the thing itself. Right? Chotech Atoch Be'emtza, the middle of the thing. Good morning, Menachem. Sha'al Yado, that binds of this, is the Tachlis, is the purpose. And the Sof, the end, Sha'al Yado, that by means of this comes, the Tachlis, the goal. Ubesof comes the Siyum, the end, and the completion, and the sum total of everything. So everything you have in the world can be defined. Everything, the world can be defined. That's the whole essence of what the world is. That's like the big problem with science trying to figure out where the world came from, because the beginning of the world is not defined, and they want to try to define it. Everything that there is in creation is defined. What does it mean it's defined? It has a beginning, it has an end, and it's a middle. If it doesn't have those things, then it has no definition, right? If you don't know where a thing begins, so then it, so to speak, is not really different from anything else in the world. You have to have some sort of a beginning, boundaries. Boundaries imply on all sides there has to be a boundary. So there has to be a beginning, there has to be an end, and then there's what's in the middle, the content. Okay, so it says that the end is how the beginning and the end, that's what separates from everything else. And the content of it is why it's separate from everything else. There's the why is this particular topic found in the world, right? That's the content of it. And the beginning and the end is where it starts and where it stops. Okay. It says in the creation of the world, is when you finally get to the end, you reveal why it started in the beginning. Right? Like you watch a movie, right? Until you get to the end of the movie, you don't really understand why is the whole rest of the movie. What's going on? What are they going for? What's the thing? Especially at these what is it, mystery books? All of a sudden, at the end, all of a sudden, it turns around. The good guy, he's really the bad guy, and the bad guy, he's really the good guy. The end is the whole point of it. So we have the beginning, that's the start, and then we have the middle, which is the content. Then we have the end. Everything is like that. Everything in the world has a beginning, middle, and end. In general, this can be divided into 3 things. The Torah. The Torah is the beginning of all creation. That's the foundation, the beginning of everything. Like the rabbis say, that the Torah is called Reshit Darko. The Torah is called the beginning of God's way. Ki kadma la'olam, because it's before the world. The atachlit, and this is the goal and the intention also of everything. Breshit, God created the world in the beginning for the Torah. That the Torah was called Reshit. Yes. So the Torah is the beginning. Everything has to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. What's the beginning of the world, of all creation? The Torah. What's the middle? The world. Breshit Olam, Seder Ishtalshlut, the whole entire creation of the world, what the Kabbalah writes about the Tzimtzum, and before the Tzimtzum, after the Tzimtzum, and also the service, Bebriya, the Avoda, Bebriya, Kedei Lemalot et Tachlit, and the service of man. God creates man. b'shvil Torah, for the sake of the Torah. So we have the beginning is the Torah, the middle is the world, and man in the world, and the finish is geula mitit v'shlema, the final redemption. There'll be the whole purpose of this world. That's why it was created in the beginning. Huh? Beginning, middle, and end. And of course, people will ask a question. 1 second. If the world, like eat, drink, and be merry, tomorrow we're going to die. And what's the whole purpose of it? For absolutely nothing. He says, no, that's exactly the wrong. The goal of everything that we're revealing is to reveal God in the world. And God is the ultimate, the source of all meaning, the source of all life, the source of all being. This is a thing which we can't comprehend, but it's ultimately meaningful. And there are things in the world which are also the same thing. Let's take maybe the biggest example is love. Father's love for his children, children's love for their parents, a brotherly love, friendly love, right? Sometimes a person will do anything just to see his parents, even for one moment, just to embrace his child. Give me one moment to embrace. It's worthwhile for him to do. What's he get out of it? He gets a taste of infinity. He gets a taste of not worrying about what's going to be, not thinking about anything except for reality. What's really real? That's really the truth. That's what's going to be revealed in the end. The truth. Okay, now let's see. Yesh Lomar, we can say, so we have the creation of the world, the middle, and the goal. The goal. Also, another big thing is that the goal of the world is to show us that everything we did in the middle was really infinite. It was really infinite. It didn't really die. All the good things we did are eternal. We don't feel any of that now. That's what's called the geula. Okay. Yeshlom, we can say Gimel thing. These three things, the beginning, the middle, and the end, are hinted at on the three first letters of the Aleph Beit Gimel. Call the Torah, the whole entire Torah was given in the 10 Commandments. This is included in Anochi. The first word of the 10 Commandments is Anochi, I. That this is the Aleph. Aleph is the Aleph. God created the world. That's Beit, Breshit. That's the creation of the world. That's Breshit Boro et Olam. Elokim et Hashemayim et Oretz. So the Torah is the beginning. That's Aleph, Anochi. The world is the whole content. That's Beit, the letter Beit, Breshit. And finally is going to be the Geula, the future redemption. That's the Gimel. The Geula is Gimel. So that's the beginning, middle, and end. Okay, how is that found in this week's Torah portion? We're going to see. In more detail, these three things are also in the order of the creation of the world. First of all, it rose up in God's mind to create the world. That's the Aleph. Aleph, God is called the Alufo Shalom. Beginning, God rose up in his mind to create the world. Then Beit, that's the actual creation. And Gimel, that's the completion of the creation. Everyone will see why God created, why he did the whole thing. The Gulatid and the future redemption. And that's by means of our work and our deeds, and that we draw down godliness into the world, or in the language of Kabbalah, or in the language of Chassidut. Chassidut just comes to explain a lot of the ideas of Kabbalah. Aleph, Beit Gimel. Aleph, first of all, Ot, or Ein Sof, the light of the infinite one, which fills all existence. That's Or Ein Sof, the light of God, which is before God even contracted before God spoke, so to speak, created the world. That's the Aleph. Beit. Afterwards, the Tzimtzum was the Tzimtzum of this light, that God, so to speak, contracted. He hid over, he manipulated his light, articulated his light, that there could be what's called an empty place, and etc. The intention was for the sake of revelation. That there would be a world until that's the Beit. And Gimel is a complete revelation, that in this empty space that God made, would be drawn down infinite light of God into the infinite light of God, which is not, which is before the Tzimtzum, until God becomes a dwelling, live in the world. Okay, this third place I stumbled, I bumbled it up a little bit. We talked about God before the world was created. Then we talk about the world being created, and we talked about the Geula. That's Aleph, Beit, Gimel. Right? According to Kabbalah, these three, God is creation in the world, creating. Right? How does God create the world? So God is real. In fact, God is the only real reality. And somehow from God's reality is created the world, which the world is also real, but it's not real like God's reality is yet. So God, in order to make from his reality this world, so he had to do this process, which is called the Tzimtzum, and other processes by means of which he articulated, he limited down his reality to this world. Something like a teacher who's a big genius has to bring down his wisdom to the lowest place so that it can be accepted. It can be revealed in the world. It can be revealed to his pupils, right? The pupils, and the lower the pupils are, let's say, if he has to explain, the quantum physics to high school kids, so he has to really concentrate himself. But if he has to explain it to seventh grade kids, which are the junior high school, then he has to concentrate more. If he has to explain it to children in the third grade, then he's really got problems, right? Then he has to, but that's what God does in order to create the world. So that's step number two. And step number three, that's called the Tzimtzum. And then the final step is that in the creation itself, God will reveal his essence in the creation, why he's creating the world. He's not doing it just to fool us, like we're little rats running around in a maze that God loves to see it. No, God wants his essence to be revealed in every deed, word, thought that we thought the whole entire 5,000 years of this creation of the world, 5,700, whatever. So that's Aleph, Beit, Gimel. God before the world was created, the whole entire creation of the world, which is the Tzimtzum and everything like that, and the final step, which is the revelation of God in the world. Okay, hey, so the whole thing is beginning, middle, and end. We can say also that all this is drawn down by means of the Torah, which Torah is called the blueprints of the world that God, it says, he looked into the Torah and he created the world. So therefore, the Torah itself is divided into these three things: beginning, middle, and end. The beginning of the Torah is Bereshit. That this includes Lo Rak, not only the beginning of the creation, but also the Aleph, the letter Aleph, the beginning of the Torah, which is before the world. Shekain, Bereshit, the word Bereshit means for the sake of the Torah, that the world was created for the sake of the Torah, which is called Reshit. Like it's explained also the letter Beit. The letter Beit itself, the Beit of the Torah is Bereshit, Beit. That's the Beit that announces that it has, that the world was created, Bereshit, for the sake of the Torah, the Aleph. That's the Aleph of the Torah. That's Bereshit. Bereshit is step number one in the creation of the world. Step number two, Bereshit bor Elokim et hashamayim v'et ha'oretz. Briat ha'olam, creation, the actual creation of the world and all of its details, which the world itself includes all these three things. And afterwards was drawn down all of the other Torah portions, which are talk about what happened in the world. And so we have the first word of the Torah, the Bereshit, that's the Aleph. Then we have the whole rest of the Torah, everything that happened. Adam ate from the tree, and there was a flood, and Abraham was born, and the Jews went to Egypt, and they got the Torah, and etc. That's the intention of the world, why the world was created. That's the Aleph. Until finally the end of the Torah. What's the end of the 5 books of Moses? It says the last Ad Hayom Acharon. It says until the last day. Ad, the Siyum, the end of all of the letters and of all of the signs and the miracles and all the great things that Moses did in front of all the Jewish people. And this is the completion of the Torah. So the beginning of the Torah is just the letter Beit. That's God. Then we have the whole rest of the Torah, all the 53 chapters of the Torah, all these things that happened and the commandments that were given and the sins the Jews did, and everything is all written. And finally, we have in the end the miracles that Moses did to Jewish people, the end of them. Shekashura, this is talking about why the whole world was created, why Moses did these miracles, why. This is the Moshiach. Moshiach, that Moses, he's the first Redeemer, and he'll be the last Redeemer. Kishetiyah Shlemus, when there'll be revealed godliness in the world, the eyes of the eyes of all the Jewish people. And then it'll be like going out of Egypt. So that's the Gimel, that's the final stage. Kamarumas, and this is also hinted in Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is the ethics of the fathers. There's 6 chapters of advice, 6 chapters of Torah advice given about learning Torah, about doing commandments, about our attitude in the world. In Pirkei Avot, in the beginning of Pirkei Avot, it starts off that Moses received the Torah from Mount Sinai. This is everything dealing with the Torah, everything which a pupil will learn from Torah. That's step number 1, the whole Torah in general. Moses received it. Then after that, Moses gave it over and made a lot of pupils. And this is an order from generation to generation until the Torah became revealed, what all the pupils of the Torah will learn in all the courses of the generations. And finally, the end of Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, it says God will rule forever and ever. This includes all of time until the end of all times. The true redemption of completion, where we'll see why God made time, why God made people, why God gave the Torah, why there's a world. We'll see that everything that we did, said, and thought, if it was according to what the Torah says, is infinite. It's a different type of true reality that we're not used to. That's what's going to be in the future. The Atid Lavo in the future, that all the kingship will belong to God. That's how Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, ends. The completion of the intention of why we received the Torah, why God gave the Torah for all the generations. Yesh Lomar, we can say, Shezeo Echad Metamim, that's one of the reasons why that the giving of the Torah is connected to the number 3. Okay, so Pirkei Avot, that talks about the Torah. There's in the Torah, there's also these 3 levels. Beginning, Moses got the Torah. Number 2, all the laws of the Torah. And the final is the revelation of God who gave the Torah that'll be revealed in the world. That's why the Torah also can be divided into 3. Now, this is, by the way, is all going to come back to this week's Torah portion, how we can see these 3 levels in this week's Torah portion. Like the rabbis say, Brich Rachmana De'ayev, let us thank God, blessed is God, who gave us a triple Torah to a triple people by means of a number 3 on the 3rd day, on the 3rd month. Okay, what does this mean? Does he explain it? So it says the Torah is triple. How is the Torah triple? There's Torah, 5 books of Moses, Nevi'im, all the prophets, and the Ketuvim, and all the books like Psalms. And the Jewish people are triple, the Kohanim, the Levites, and the Israel. It was given by means of the number 3, Moses. Moses was born to Amon, to his father and mother. He was number 3. Before him came Aaron and Miriam. He was number 3. It was given on the 3rd day. It was the 3rd day that the Jewish people separated themselves on Mount Sinai. From Mount Sinai, they said there was Sholosh Levin Hagbalah. It says they were separated, and it was given on the 3rd month. The Torah was given on the 3rd month, the month of Sivan. Sivan month is the 3rd month of the year from, if you count from Nisan, there's Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. Rab Natori Gon, he explains more things of 3 also. Number 3. Why number 3? And the Torah is connected to number 3. Why? Because by means of giving the Torah, it filled the purpose of the whole entire creation of the world, which we said is all Aleph, Beit, and Gimel, beginning, middle, and end. It begins with these 3 things, beginning, middle, and end. And therefore, the Torah itself is divided up into all constantly number 3. We can say that that's how this is found in our Torah portion, and we're going to learn about this, God willing, tomorrow. How we can find this beginning, middle, and end in our Torah portion. The whole entire world, the whole universe, all creation is capsulated in this week's Torah portion. We're going to see how tomorrow.